I'll go to the ranking member of the full committee, the gentleman from New York, Mr. Nadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Copan, American companies' ability to invest in R&D ensures that our patents 10 years from now are competitive with Chinese companies. How can investments in American R&D affect our national security over time?
Thank you so much for that question, Congressman. The ability of the U.S. to invest from the private sector and to see value creation in the global marketplace is an essential part of the workings of a global economy. These connections, however, between national security and economic security are very, very clear and direct at this time. And so the health of the U.S. corporations that have a global play, and also the ability to license under FRAND terms in ways that truly provide returns on investment for U.S. industry to continue to drive forward research and innovation and lead the world is essential also for national security.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, we have seen the Chinese government use anti-suit injunctions in the past in a manner that I have characterized as bullying, but then seemingly move on after being challenged on the global stage. But moving on does not mean that they have stopped abusing the legal system, right?
Yeah, moving on for China in this case means I believe that the EU WTO case forced China to at least put a pause on anti-suit injunctions, not to stop them entirely. What we've seen is the evolution of judicial practice towards global rate setting and greater extraterritorial reach of the courts. So we're hardly beyond the problem of China setting rates for SEPs outside of its territorial jurisdiction.
Let me ask you a question that you may have partially answered just now. Can you describe some of the new tactics the Chinese government has adopted to reach the same ends? And given that the Chinese government is clearly skilled at taking advantage of different legal regimes as needs arise, what would be an appropriate response from the U.S. government in conjunction with our allies?
Well, let me begin by the second part of that question. I think the appropriate response, if possible, is to be as multilateral as possible. I think that could mean using the United Nations or negotiating through vehicles like the IP5 or the USPTO with the other 4 largest patent offices, or engaging our antitrust authorities also to engage with their Chinese counterparts. The issue is the continuing, in Chinese there's a saying, you have a policy, I have a counter policy. And what we've seen in China is the continual evolution of counter policies that rarely get to the bottom line. And I think that's part of a problem with the WTO itself, because you can't really amend your complaints at the WTO. You have to file another complaint. So that's a limitation, and I think we really need the focus of all our trading partners on this industrial policy approach to FRAND and SEP rates.
Should we try to get the WTO to allow the modification of complaints that you just said?
Yeah, I think that would help, frankly, because otherwise we're filing disputes on yesterday's issues.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, I understand that the Chinese government's approach to dominating standards has included subsidies for patent applications for technology related to standards. Can you elaborate on this practice and describe its implications for what kind and how many patents Chinese companies might get?
That's a great question, and the numbers are in the thousands, if not tens of thousands. And it's not limited to SEPs, but at least in the SEP area, it's a bigger focus of litigation. It's resulted in overall a lower quality for Chinese patents. It imposes a burden on patent offices because, as any skilled bureaucrat knows, they have to use their end-of-year money. And if they have subsidies at the end of the year, then everybody wants to file to get those subsidies. And we've seen lower quality Chinese patents in the last quarter, in the fall. In fact, I joke sometimes that if China wants to improve its innovative ecosystem, they just have to ban autumn. So what we've seen is China using that quantitative advantage to achieve an advantage in the courts, and sometimes antitrust agencies frequently rely on patent counts, and they don't want to go through the more laborious task of qualitative analyses.
Thank you. And finally, how does this practice affect global rate setting? And what is the best way to ensure that rates reflect patent quality rather than quantity, as you just said?
Yeah, I think I've already partially addressed that. It clearly addresses rate setting, particularly by agencies that rely on counts. I think the more we bring new information to the table, the PTO did a great report, I think, about 4 years ago on the quality of Chinese SEP patents. They also did it on trademarks, and they pointed out the pernicious effect of patents, of subsidies on that. And I think we need to do more of that, bringing it out into the open air, because it's not discussed enough.
Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley,